It always comes to this. Morning guys, back again to do another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I had a big back stretch of my forearm done and my elbow again, probably the 4th or 5th time. We've done the elbow color over black work, and I'm happy to say that we had a really good result this time. So I'll show that off in a little bit. I've got way more important things to talk about first, but I will touch on all of that. So I had my 4th pass on my left fingers, and I am happy and not happy to say at the same time, which is complicated, that it went a lot worse in a way than the right finger blackout did recently. I mentioned about how these kind of came out, they went easier than I expected them to. It was like not the experience I remembered it being last time, and I thought maybe I built this up in my head a little too much, and it really actually wasn't that bad. But those have mostly peeled now, and they're still not perfect. They're a lot better than they were, if you recall what they looked like the first time. Or not the first time. I've done them several times, but it's been a long time. So it feels kind of like the first time. It's been 2.5 weeks since the session on these, and I'm still holding on to some dry, crispy stuff, mainly in the knuckles, but along the side of the hand too. As you get closer to the palm, it takes worse. And I am open to doing another round on this. I think maybe just one more. I don't actually think that my left hand will need probably, well, if it does need any more, it'll be maybe just a light touch-up. I think we got this one in more solid. Terry made some adjustments. The whole thing took about twice as long, but we also did the knuckles because I really didn't want to be fussing with color on black knuckles again. As you can see here, this hand had an infection. Now, this hand has never had such an infection, but even with that said, the knuckles here, they haven't taken as well as, say, my arm red on black. And again, this red is supposed to be dark, so it's not like it was ever going to be really, really bright like that red there would be, but it's not as dark, and it almost looks like soupy. And though I'm not done on that hand, and I've said a million times I'm going to be doing another layer of red there. Now it's been about a year, more than a year since the last pass on it. We did 3 passes of red on black, believe it or not. You can see all of those videos from last year on this channel. All of these sessions have been documented. If you think I'm fubbing the numbers or something, it's all up here in clear sight for the world to see. There is no way to deny the amount of work that's been done here. I've had some people insist that I've done laser recently, and those people are fucking morons. They shouldn't. I always think these days, I understand that everyone has a voice and we can all say our opinion on social media, but I start to think that we need some kind of a criteria in place to keep people from commenting on things they know nothing about. I don't mind curiosity. What I mind is blind arrogance and ignorance on a matter, you know? So what I mind is people stating things as if they're facts when in reality they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. And especially when you have someone like myself who's put out more video content and more explanation on a topic than probably anyone else in this entire fucking subgenre of, or subculture of life. It's a little hard to cast doubt at me, and people still do, and it's very frustrating because when I was coming up in all this shit, there was no one doing what I'm doing. And I'm not patting myself on the back, that's a reality. You can't find anyone else talking about this stuff. So when you consider how much work I put into informing people and taking them through this, And pretty well any question they could ever ask, if they did a simple Google search, they could find the answer to. If you don't know, you're just lazy. Because the answer's out there now, and I've already done this. Any question that I'm asked often, if I Google it, one of my videos comes up with the answer. That's how predictive AI works. So next time you've got a stupid question to ask, rather than leaving an ignorant comment thinking you know the answer, maybe fucking check first. I haven't had any laser. Anyway, this session was a lot more painful than the right hand. It was a lot more painful. As soon as we started, it was more painful. I don't really know what to make of that. This hand was kind of a cakewalk in some regard. It might be because Terry changed some things up after seeing the result over here. But I think to some degree he's still just winging it. Like he's not like he has the answer. It's not like there's no one that's doing finger blackouts every fucking day. Sometimes I think the internet will show you them a lot, and so you think that there's a lot of these out there. But for reference, I have not seen anyone in person, and I work at a tattoo shop. I haven't seen anyone in person that has full saturation finger blackouts but me. There's definitely probably over 100 people in the world with them, but it's not nearly as common as what the internet would have you believe, because these kinds of things usually will go viral. You'll see them a lot because they trend, mostly because they entice ignorant comments from people, and anything that baits hate is pushed by the algorithms. Your social media algorithms want you to be unhappy. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to be angry because you pay more attention to things when you're angry. So they're going to show you things that confuse you and upset you, and maybe that's what leads you to lashing out, but I just still don't think it's an excuse for ignorance. But I do understand that these kinds of things don't make sense to most people that aren't in the subculture. Now, with that said, as I said, it was more painful, and I'm a lot more swollen. I can't move my hand as much. Part of that is the fact that we did both sets of knuckles, so the far and near knuckles, and we have more of this. I tried showing it off on my other hand, but I didn't really have much to show. There were some spots on the fingers that were a little bit wet or like tissuey still, and you really just want to dry those up. Like, for example, I have a little bit of leaking here. There's a little bit of blood, and there's still some spots here that if I were to press them slightly, they would ooze plasma and blood. That's because those wounds are still not completely closed, but you can see most of it is, and you really just want to dry it out until that's the case. This won't happen every time. So like, you might be sitting out there, you might have a blackout hand, and you may have never had this happen. However, I have seen this happen on myself and others, and the answer is you just want to dry it out, because you don't want anything open. That's when you can get an infection. And until then, you want to really be careful. I think by the end of the day, I'll have all of these spots dried out. But for now, my hand is heavy, hot feeling, and exposed in some way. So you just want to be careful when you're in that first day or two. Once that first day or two passes of pretty much full dry heal, if you have any of these spots, do not moisturize them. Because what will happen is, not only will more of the plasma leak out and the bleeding will continue, it will keep the wound soggy and open, and a spore could get in there, and that's how you get something like a staph infection. Okay, so first priority is to dry the fucking thing out. Once it's fully dry and it's super crispy looking, you can moisturize it a little bit. Even then, go super light with it when you're dealing with fingers and stuff. Anything that's bending a whole lot, has a lot of movement, and is prone to kind of like, you know, busting open or anything like that, you don't really want to over moisturize that. This is where aftercare can differentiate a little bit depending on the area we're talking about here. I want this thing like sandpaper dry by the end of the day if I can get it there, and then the swelling will come down with it. Believe it or not, if you continue to moisturize something like this when you have these spongy textures and this hamburgery kind of brainy like texture here, you can see it a little more in person than on this video even. If you were to put a deep moisturizer on this right now, it would get inside there, and these things would get soggier looking, and they would get like almost bulgy and damp looking, and then they would just ooze plasma. And then when you ooze plasma, the worst thing that happens is you get an infection, but the another bad thing that happens is from the wound being open, I should say, before I move on, you can more likely get an infection, but you can also lose pigmentation when you're leaking ink. So whatever hard work your artist did to get that in there is now seeping out of you. So you really do, I want to stress, you really do want to close that up as soon as you can. So in some ways, I'm happy that this was the experience this time, because it made me remember like just what a thing this is to have done. It's not something to be taken lightly. I think sometimes social media will condition you to thinking that this is for everyone, and I do think that anyone can theoretically and technically sit through this stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm not Superman. It's just that we need to make sure that we're telling people how these things actually work and how they heal, and that it is fairly violent to sit for. It's not a walk in the fucking park, and anyone who tells you it is either lying or completely in denial. There is no two ways, there's no other way around it. Anyone who tells you they sat for their finger blackout, it didn't hurt, is, yeah, they're a liar. That person is to be disregarded. Now, last time, as I said, this one wasn't as bad as this was this time, but it still hurt like hell. It wasn't that traumatic experience and that horrible heal that this one is going to be. So, yeah, still worth it. And if we get any kind of a positive result, in my mind, it wasn't a waste of time. I'm not expecting perfect. I'm expecting some spots. Even at the end of this, the hard part for the tattooer sometimes is like their pride gets up where you can tell an area isn't fully saturated, but you can't hit it again because it's already so swollen, and you just have to take a walk. And the best thing to do is just to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, because you don't want to overwork someone's fingers. It's hard enough to heal them as it is. So sometimes you're just going to have to make your peace with the fact that you've only been working on that knuckle for 2 minutes, but it's already tapped out. It's done. It's the size of the fucking moon, and it's not going to take anymore. And any more that you do to it is just going to, it's just going to swell more and push more plasma out, and you're kind of working against yourself at some point. And that happens really quick with the fingers. Every part of your fingers swells up almost immediately as soon as it starts getting worked on. So you don't really have much time. Like this all around took around an hour and a half, believe it or not, but that's because every square inch of this takes a while to saturate, but every square inch of it is swelling so fast too. So you're kind of working against the clock, even though it does take some time. You can't spend that long on any individual part of it without it blowing up. So it's a bit of a fucking stress test, and it hurts like hell too. So it's not necessarily fun for anyone. But anyway, I should show this off because I mentioned. So this is nearly fully peeled now. This is the best this elbow's ever looked. So for reference, it looks better than this elbow does, but this elbow hasn't been touched in quite a while. And there'll be people who are like, well, Remy, it's only been like 5 days. Like, let's see what it looks like in a year. It's like, no, it's not. There's nothing like that, okay? By now, I've showed off enough times that what it looks like after it's healed is usually basically what you've got. It doesn't really do this thing that a lot of incompetent tattooers will try and tell you it does, where it's like, oh, it'll just turn back to black. No, if it's saturated, you'll kind of know after that heal happens. Like, most of what's going to be lost is going to get lost after the first week or so, and after that it's just going to fade like any other tattoo will. And sorry to tell you, the guy that got his tattoo of a bald eagle in 1992, but it is more faded than it was that day. And it doesn't matter if you think so or not. That's not how anything works. Everything will fade back a little bit, but it's not like it's just going to turn back to, like, what is it turning back to exactly? Which sleeve am I turning back to over here? You know, because it goes farther back than black then. There are a lot of people who will tell you can't cover color with black. I've heard this. There are black workers who will refuse to do blackout sleeves over color. There are some famous black workers who don't like doing blackout sleeves over color. So this, which sleeve is coming back through here? My first one, my blackout, various other levels of this? What's happening here? What are we talking about? Anyway, the fact that that is nearly fully healed and we have that means that we have a structure here finally, after so much work, that should hold up. And also, I wanted to mention this guy here was done for the 4th time, color over black, and those colors look as good as they would on normal skin now. There's no differential. Of course, there are some dark colors in there too. People should remember that not every color that we've used is meant to be super bright. You should be able to get that indication from the light blue and light yellow that is in here that maybe some of this was intentionally done to be dark for contrast purposes, but it's instinctive for people to assume that when they see dark colors, it means that all colors over black will go dark, even when you show them things like this. So if it seems like I'm getting cagey on these matters, you can't really imagine what it must be like to be one of the only people in the world that's ever really shown this off on a regular basis. And the kinds of comments you get, they get borderline maddening sometimes, because I've answered the same questions so many times. And, you know, most times, like, I'm getting more and more apart from my comment sections. Like, I'm starting to not respond to comments, and from there, I think I go to just not reading any more comments. And it's a shame, because I do have some people that I like connecting with through social media, and there's a lot of support too. And a lot of the comments I'm talking about, they're not even necessarily negative ones sometimes. It's just the same ones you've answered a million times over and over again. And it's like, if you're not going to put any effort into finding the answer that's out there, I'm not going to put any more effort into telling you. You know, it's not like I haven't. So it's frustrating, but I think that might be the way it has to go soon. And you know, I'm big against gatekeeping, and I think this industry needs to be more open. But when the answer is there for you, you need to put a little more effort into finding it before you ask for the millionth time the same things over and over again. I'm not getting paid to answer these questions, by the way. It's not a job. It's a passion project, and though I do make some money from my social media, this is not paying my bills. So it's a hobby. It's a passion. It's not a job. And I doubt most people would be as willing to share this kind of information, which is part of why there was none when I was growing up, as I mentioned earlier. Anyway, I'm expecting this to be mostly dried out by the next time I talk to you guys. It'll be probably 3 or 4 days in, so it'll probably be pretty crispy looking next time you see it. But I thought this morning would be a good example of kind of a worst case, not worst, but at least a worst case scenario than what I had to show with this one, where this was a relatively easy heal. This one's going to be a bit more of a journey. All right, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.